Well, let me first begin by saying it is an absolute pleasure to be with you all here to help close out the 2015 Youth Assembly at the United Nations. My name's Andy Rabens. I'm the Special Advisor for Global Youth Issues at the U.S. Department of State in the Office of the Undersecretary for Public Diplomacy and Public Affairs. It's a role that's focused on how to help the U.S. government better engage young people internationally to help solve some of the pressing challenges of the day, from countering violent extremism to climate change to Middle East peace, but also helping to build a greater global community with connectivity and networks that shape the world of tomorrow. Now, I'm excited to have the opportunity to talk with you all today. Over 600 delegates from over 30 countries around the globe about the opportunities in front of us to put our stamp on the Sustainable Development Goals and to embrace a collective vision of the world as it could be. A world that we'll inherit. A world that we have a historic opportunity to help shape. So today I want to focus on three key areas. First, I want to talk a little bit about the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, in the ambitious collective vision of the world that they seek. Secondly, I want to talk a little bit about the moment that we're living in and the power of this generation, of our generation, of young global leaders, and the power that we have at our fingertips. And finally, I want to close with a call to action for all of us to use the power at our fingertips to implement the Sustainable Development Goals and shape the world as it could be. But before I jump into things, I just want to tell you real quickly that the last time I was at this very podium was about 10 years ago, right after college, when I was an intern at the US mission to the United Nations just a few blocks down the road. I remember being in the seats that you all are sitting in right now, looking up and watching the spirited debates, watching the president of the General Assembly at the time, a guy named Jan Eliasson, who was a Swedish diplomat, effortlessly move the body towards consensus. And I remember gazing in awe at the diplomats as they tried to make their case to the world body about important issues. Before I finished my internship, I felt it very important to come and try to take a picture at this podium, a picture where that made me look like I was addressing the crowd. I tried to go through official means, no such luck. So I have to admittedly say that one late night, a few of the interns and I came up here. We actually made it into this podium, and we took a few pictures pretending to address the crowd. We would have taken a selfie if that had been in fashion at the time. So it's truly humbling. It's truly humbling to actually be invited to this podium today to speak and engage with you all around the Sustainable Development Goals. Ladies and gentlemen, we are living in an amazing moment in history where the global community is in the midst of shaping a vision of the world for 15 years down the road through the post-2015 Sustainable Development Agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. As young leaders today, we have an opportunity to not only shape the view, but to implement it and ensure that concrete progress takes place before our very eyes. Now, the SDGs expand on the MDGs, the Millennial Development Goals, 8 goals that were established 15 years ago that sought to tackle some of the world's biggest development challenges. And there have been some real gains. A significant drop in the share of people living in extreme poverty, an increase in the number of global citizens with access to clean water, expanded educational opportunities for women and girls. But there is plenty left on the table and a lot more that needs to be done. So this bold new agenda of Sustainable Development Goals will likely consist of about 17 goals for the next 15 years. Ambitious targets for eradicating poverty once and for all, ensuring environmental sustainability and conservation, advancing gender equality and further empowering women and girls, tackling conflict and climate change, building peaceful, well-governed, and prosperous societies so that no global citizen is left behind. And just last Sunday, August 2nd, negotiations on the post-2015 development agenda concluded, and all eyes now are looking towards the fall at the United Nations Summit for the adoption of the post-2015 development agenda. So it's an exciting moment. But the next question is, what is the role for all of us? What is the role for global youth leaders in this process? Well, we happen to be in luck as a generation of leaders in 2015 because more power is at our fingertips than ever before. Back in 2000, when the Millennial Development Goals were rolled out, we were living in a very different world. To put it in perspective quickly, I'm 32 years old today. And back in 2000, I was a 17-year-old senior in high school with braces and a big mop of red hair, a good bit of acne on my face. I thought it was hip because I drove around town in the Lincoln Mark 7. I listened to Shaggy and Outkast on my Discman. I had a MySpace account. And I owned, not an iPhone, but a pager. Does anybody remember what those pagers were like? For those who don't know what a pager is, it was one of these things that you clipped it to your belt. A number would call, it would buzz, a number would appear, you'd go find the nearest payphone, you'd see if you got a quarter, you put the quarter in the payphone, and you call them back. This was before 9/11, before Facebook or Twitter, before smartphones, before selfies, before powerful social networks, before the proliferation of media platforms. Young people in 2000 were living in a very different time and had far less power at their fingertips. Yet, many young people mobilized in 2000 around the Millennial Development Goals and tried to make them their own. But we are living, luckily, in a very different time than 2000. Everyone, if you have a pager or an iPhone, pick it up real quick. Take it out. If you have a selfie stick, take that out too, because those are actually, I don't know if they allow them in here, but those are kind of my favorite. Because of technology and demographics, this is the most empowered generation that the world has ever seen. Today, as you well know, our youth number, 60% of the globe is below the age of 35. That's an awfully large power base if that demographic and group can be mobilized. The diffusion and shift in power has moved from hierarchical institutions like governments and traditional media to individuals and networks. The changing media landscape, from a box of chocolates where a few key media outlets were controlling the space, to a grocery store aisle full of outlets that young people are playing key roles on, and the leveling power of technology. The reality that technology is helping us overcome age-long challenges of geography, of language, of culture, of information and opportunity. So in short, there's a lot more power at our fingertips today than there were in 2000 when the generation before us was pushing forward on the Millennial Development Goals. And this brings me to my final point, the call to action around the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a historic opportunity in front of us to take the power at our fingertips and apply it to the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. But to do so, we have to find a way to make the goals our own. And we have to find a way to put a face, a physical face, on those goals. Now, I had the privilege of spending the past 2 weeks in Africa, being inspired and moved by the dynamism and optimism of young leaders on the ground there. So when I see the goal of eradicating poverty, I don't see just words on a page. I see my good friend Mohammed from the Bwaizi slum in Kampala, who founded the Bwaizi Youth Employment Center to tackle local poverty in his community. And I want to be a partner with Mohammed. When I see the goal of advancing gender equality, I don't see words on a page. I see my good friend Grace Jerry from Nigeria, who may be confined to a wheelchair, but who is leading a movement for women's rights, for disability rights, and for human rights all across Africa. And I want to be a partner for Grace. When I see the goal of building peaceful, inclusive societies, I don't see words or a goal on a page. I see my good friend Dr. Al Nasser from Iraq, who's a full-time doctor in Baghdad, but who spends his free time working with young Iraqis to find alternatives to violence and extremism. And you bet I want to be a partner for Dr. Al Nasser. Now, we all have stories. We all have these people that give us inspiration, that give us hope. And if we can make the sustainable development goals come alive by linking them to the people and sources of inspiration that we all know, well, then there's no stopping us. Because with the power at our fingertips and the connectivity in our hands, we don't even have to wait till 2030 to implement these goals. We can start tackling them right now and start building that inclusive, interconnected world as it could be. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time, and let's get moving on this together. Thank you.